had an absolute nightmare this morning. I've woken up and I've not got a single bloody tea bag in my house.
Oh no,
I know.
that is a disaster.
So, on today's first episode of Leaving Med, we have our guest Ellie, all the way from New Zealand, who's going to be telling us a little bit about why she made the move and how it's been going ever since. It's been a couple years, is that right, Ellie?
Almost 2 years in January.
Okay, so just for a little bit of background, kind of at what stage were you at when before you made the move over?
So I was thinking about it in F3, but I was in a job that I quite enjoyed that was good for my career in London as a clinical fellow job. And so it wasn't until my F4 that I decided to come over
Hmm.
for just a year.
And kind of how were you getting on in the UK? Was it like a difficult decision or?
I think actually thinking about it back then, it probably wasn't a difficult decision. The scariest part was moving to the other side of the world, and what was daunting was filling all the paperwork out. I think that was the most daunting process. um,
Yeah.
but I didn't really enjoy my work-life balance in the UK at all. Um, I was getting home 8, 9 p.m. A lot of the time, and uh, yeah, it was dissatisfying, and you didn't feel like you were doing right by everyone either because you were just constantly behind and busy and stressed. And I was just like, I kind of saw it more as a traveling trip, as a
Mm.
holiday, and thought I'll just come for a year. Originally just 6 months, and then I decided I'll do it for a year, but kind of travel for a lot of it. But in the end, I came out here and found, yes, it was difficult, I guess, in the sense that I stepped up to being a med reg from being an SHO, but that actually the work life balance was 100 times better, and I was happier. Um, and so found myself thinking, "Oh God, a year's going to go by, and I won't have done any traveling." And actually, I want to stay longer because the pay's great, the work's great, everyone's nice to me. No one shouted at me. I'm not nervous or anxious to make phone calls. Um, it's really well supported. Why don't I just stay a bit longer?
Yeah. So I'm sure that there's a few things in there that people can relate to. But you mentioned about like the paperwork being daunting. What were the first steps that you had to take, and did anything help you on that journey?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate in that I went came through over here through an agency. Um, Unfortunately, that agency has uh, they've decided to close up shop, but there are other agencies that do almost the same thing. And I reached out to them and said I was thinking about coming over. How would I go about getting a job, sorting out my medical license, insurance? Visas, everything, and they were great because they laid it all out for me. So they had a checklist and kept regular email contact, and also made the effort to phone me, to ask about me and what I liked doing in my spare time, to know where to try and get me a job. So they helped me to get a job, which was great. And I know some people don't always do that. They find the job themselves and then do the rest themselves. But going through an agency was great. And also there's no fees. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, makes sense to have someone sort of guide you through that process. So
Yeah.
like why were you drawn to New Zealand and not say Australia?
Um, I got the impression that all Brits were going to Australia, and so I wanted to be different. But coming over here, I actually went to a stats talk the other weekend on the percentage of doctors in New Zealand that are Kiwi and British, and it's something like 70% are British and 30% are
No
Kiwi.
way.
Um, but that's consultants. But it kind of tells you a bit more. And what, yeah, as juniors as well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar ratio. Um, so yeah, I guess. But I also I liked more of the outdoors, and I think I wanted it to be still a little bit similar to the UK. Um, I saw Australia as I've never been, but as this big hot country, and I didn't necessarily. I like the hot weather, but I didn't want that all the time. And I wanted more of the outdoorsy aspect, which I think New Zealand possibly has more to offer. But then again, I've never been to Australia, so I don't know. But yeah, yeah, it was just a personal decision for me.
Yeah, makes sense. So, thinking about when you first landed in New Zealand almost 2 years ago, what were those first few weeks like?
I just felt like I was on holiday. I loved it. What was, fantastic. The agency picked me up from the airport. Drove me straight away to sort out my bank account, helped me pick out a secondhand car, set me up with a mobile SIM, sorted out my final details for the for tax, for the medical council, everything. They were really good. And then I had a week's holiday in Taranaki, which is a beautiful, beautiful part of New Zealand. Um, with two friends who were already living here, and I just immediately fell in love with it. It just is a beautiful country. It's yeah.
Lovely.
Instantly felt at home.
And then what about when you started working? Were there big differences in the way that they practice medicine over there?
Um, so I started working on a stroke ward with some geriatricians, and so I want to do geriatric medicine, so it was close to home. And but the hospital tries and puts you with your initial rotation. So we do 4 month rotations, similar to the UK. Um, they try and put you in a rotation to start with that you feel comfortable with in um, to kind of ease you in. And I started a week or two after the F1 started. And so they were new as well. But the consultants they're just so supportive. They round almost every day. They see the new patients and the sick patients every day. They are so approachable. They're at the end of the phone or a text. That the day-to-day job didn't feel hard work. Um, yeah.
Nice. How have you found the pay? Is it similar to the UK or?
I think it's probably is more than the UK. It depends on what job you do. So you can be an SHO over here on what's called relief. So they have a system over here which is fantastic. They should have it in the UK, where they have an additional 4 or 5 registrars, 4 or 5 SHOs who cover anyone who's on leave, on sick, and they're called relief doctors, and they get paid a silly amount of money. And you can do a full rotation on it. And I mean, the SHO on relief gets paid more than a medical registrar on an ordinary run. So that's what a lot of people choose to do. And it's actually, people say, oh, they pay you more because it's a stressful job. I don't think it is. I think actually, because you're just there as an extra, as a help, because, that person's off sick for the day or on annual leave. You're just grateful for the extra support. And I you're
Mm.
not expected to then to do the family discussions or to do more of the in-depth work for the patient because you're only there for the day. So I actually think the job's easier. But then the medical registrar job definitely does pay more than the like a maybe a senior a fellow in the UK or an SHO. Um, and there's lots of opportunity to do extra locum shifts and things that does pay really good. So yeah, I'd say the pay is better.
And I've heard that you don't have to pay for like fees over there. Is that true?
Yes, so you get your medical council fees paid for. I think they're about $1,000 a year. You also get your initial visa paid for. What varies from hospital to hospital. They're actually cutting down how much they're paying off people's fees nowadays. Um, One time they were paying for, if you were coming from the UK, your flight, your visa, a month's rent, a month's car rental as well. They were paying people a hell of a lot. I missed out on that, unfortunately. Um, and now I think they've got, you could certainly get most of your medical license fees, your indemnity stuff that's automatically covered by the hospital. Um, Union fees are covered, and also training. So, um, your equivalent to IMT over here is called basic training. And it's very easy to get onto. You don't have to write a personal statement. You don't have to prove that you've done any quality improvement projects. You just apply and pay about $2,000, $3,000. Um, and you have to have a consultant in the hospital say, yep, they're good to go on the training. And then it gets paid back by the hospital. So everything is paid for, which is great.
Nice.
And even if you don't want to do training, you can do what's called in practice, which is just like having an online portfolio that you have to do for the medical council. Well, they pay for those fees as well.
And the canteen is free as well.
Ah,
Is that
yes, the big what lots of people are drawn into, the lovely cafeteria food. It's I have to say, me and another guy, Matt, who's Scottish, started a similar time. Matt loves the food at the cafeteria. Yes, you can get it's all free. Um, you can pile your plate high with sandwiches, sushi, hot food, drinks, um, chips, burgers, toasties, and it'll be paid for. And you get that breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you really wished. After a year and a half, I'm tired of the food. It's not of a high nutritional value, and some of it can be a little bit questionable. So I do bring in some food sometimes just to have a bit of a break. But yes, it's a great, great benefit. 100%.
and sort of now that you're in training, is that would you say you're getting good learning opportunities? Like, are you getting teaching? Does it compare to what your colleagues in the UK are experiencing in training at the moment?
I guess that's tricky to because I don't truly know the extent of the training or the access to it's more the access, isn't it? Because let's face it, we can have training and organize training wherever we are in the world. But if we are too busy to ever go, we can't access it. And I'd say that I've been able to access it because of free time on the ward a lot more frequently here. We have an hour on a Tuesday lunchtime that is strictly training based teaching, and then we have a clinical reasoning session on a Thursday. We have a journal club on a Wednesday, and a grand round on a Wednesday as well. So there's quite a lot of teaching. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
There's a lot of positives that you've mentioned. Are there any downsides that you think are important to mention?
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's all well and good me feeling like I'm on holiday, but the hardest part is friends and family, and being so far away, having to miss friends' weddings and big birthday events is really hard. It's expensive. Yeah, yes, you get paid more over here, but um, it's still you know, it's hard. I did a trip back to the UK earlier this year, and the jet lag I really suffered with it. And so it's not just, a plane ride away. It is a week of getting back into that time zone. So yeah, that can be really hard, and also matching hours so that you can catch up with friends and family. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's quite a way away, isn't it?
Yeah. The other side of the world.
Have you managed to make sort of kind of a good group of friends out there? How's it been kind of building, starting from scratch again?
Yeah, I think, um, Brits are naturally drawn to Brits, and shared experiences. I mentioned my friend Matt, and there's a group of us, Brits, and everyone's very friendly. And I think if you think about it, most outgoing people are the kind of people that move to the other side of the world to start work, and so they are the kind of people that are open to making friends. Because I think if you weren't, why would you do it? Um, the only thing I'd say is most people are quite transient. So often people, there's a lot of couples, and they come for 6 months to work in the North Island, then 6 months in the South Island. And so you make friends, and then 6 months later, people move on, or a year later, they move on. And so that can be hard. But I've made some good Kiwi friends as well. And I guess you get a little bit of that in the UK when people are changing on rotations a lot. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's been a little bit hit and miss, I'd say.
Yeah. And when you've taken holidays, have you managed to explore sort of a lot of the rest of New Zealand or other countries nearby?
Yeah, I haven't made it over to any Pacific Islands or to Australia, or really made it to any other countries nearby. But I've done lots of trips around, and I know some people, two British guys who, lots of people, when they get here, they buy a camper van. That's a pretty standard. And every weekend, Friday night, get in the van, off they go, and they're somewhere new for the weekend. It's very easy to travel. The only thing is, there isn't any real proper public transport. Um, and so you're relying on flights or driving, and the roads, it is quite a long way can take a while to get anywhere, but you just get used to driving for 2 or 3 hours to get to a new place. But it's very easy to travel, and um, lots of things to see and do and explore.
And you're based around the North Island, is that right?
Yes, in Hawke's Bay. Yeah, and I personally, I'm biased because I really like the North Island. I think there's more to do and see in the North Island. I think the South Island is more scenic. If you're big into hiking, that's probably the place to go. But if you want a little bit more culture, and variation in the things that you see and do, I'd say the North Island is probably better. And I'm biased towards Hawke's Bay, to because they've got lots and lots of wineries, and lots of wine tours and tastings. Yeah, it's great.
Sounds like a dream.
Yes.
Um, so, just to sort of wrap things up, kind of to someone who's thinking about making the move, kind of maybe they're on the fence, what would you say to them?
I'd say, if you don't get into training in the UK, I think it's worth coming out to New Zealand, even if it's just for a year, and staying open minded, because I think um, is quite refreshing. Um, it's an opportunity to, so we work from 8 till 4, to actually have your afternoons, evenings, to do things that you would want to do at home, read a book, and go to the beach, and but actually have time to do that, and spend time with people, whilst also, uh, even if you are career focused, you can gain some really good experience out here. There's a lot of interesting pathology. There's some really good teaching. Everyone's very supportive. And actually, being a medical registrar out here is nowhere near as daunting as I thought it would be. I imagine it's different in the UK, but I would say do it. If you're thinking about it, do it. You'll make money. Um, and actually, I was going to say there is a scheme which is great over here, whereby, so you don't pay into a pension, but there's this scheme called MAS where you pay 6% of your salary every paycheck into a savings account, and your employer pays 6% as well. That quickly builds up. I think I've got something like 19, 20 grand in there, that you can't touch unless you decide to leave New Zealand and not come back. So a lot of people come for a year, apply for training, go back, and but they've got a healthy amount of money to then take back to the UK. Even if all the money they've made out here they've spent traveling, they've at least got that to kind of keep them going. Yeah,
So you get to keep the employer contribution as well.
yeah, yeah. Or if you stay here and you use it as a pension later on in life, so it's
That's pretty
pretty good.
cool.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask as well, because you mentioned that, like when we spoke before, that you recently flew out to sort of do some rural medicine. Is that right?
Yes, yes. I went and did a clinic. I'm on cardiology at the moment. And I went with the cardiologist and a sonographer um, up to a like more rural hospital called in Wairoa, to see some cardiology patients who wouldn't ordinarily be able to vi- come down to clinic down in Hastings, which is an hour or so drive. Yeah, that was really cool. Went in a little four-seater plane, right next to the pilot. 15-minute trip up.
Nice.
Yeah,
Has it made you sort of enjoy being a doctor, or did you sort of always, enjoy it still despite its downsides in the UK?
I think I'm a bit sad. I think I've always enjoyed being a doctor, but I think it's actually made me. I've always been enjoyed doing the job, but I've never enjoyed doing the reading. And you see an interesting case and you think, oh, I should look that up. I never. I always thought, oh, I probably should, but I never had the energy. I never had the energy and never had the time. Now I feel like I've got so much more kind of. It's kind of reignited my interest in medicine.
Yeah.
Makes me want to learn. Having, I think IMT I'd find really difficult because I just wouldn't have that energy and motivation to actually do the reading alongside the experience, which I think is probably vital for training in the future and to pass exams. So for me, that's worked really well.
Great, amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Is there anything else you want to add or any other closing remarks?
No, I don't think so. No, it's great.
Well, I'll let you get to sleep because it's quite late over there. Um, but yeah, thank you for coming on the first episode of Leaving Med.
No problem. Best of luck with your podcast. It's going to be fantastic.
Thanks, Ellie.